Hello and welcome to a brand spanking new flight simulator video, and today we're going to be starting a series of videos on the newly released, newly updated Just Flight Avro Vulcan. Now, this was an aircraft that is, well, when I knew that Just Flight were going to create this aircraft, I was actually giddy with excitement, knowing what Flight Simulator 2020 is capable of and knowing what Just Flight is capable of. To me, the Vulcan is probably one of the most iconic aircraft that I have ever seen. I am a big fan of Cold War aviation, and I had the pleasure of seeing this particular aircraft, XH558, many times over her distinguished flying career. And to say that Just Flight have knocked the ball out of the court with a representation of the Vulcan is an understatement. This thing is absolutely amazing. I could spend hours just looking at it, listening to it. I can almost smell the leather and 1950s technology here in Flight Simulator. It's absolutely amazing. Now, what I intend to do with this video, or this series of videos, even if I can say it correctly, is basically the first video I'm going to be showing you what you get when you download your Just Flight Vulcan. Then we'll move on to states of what the aircraft is capable of, moving on to flights, moving on to how it handles, how it behaves, and basically we're going to create quite a few videos in this aircraft. I know that obviously this aircraft has been out now for a few weeks, and I have not mentioned anything about it. I've not put any content about it, and there's a reason why. I wanted to take my time and try and learn as much as I could with the aircraft in how it handles, how it operates. And I didn't want to rush into it and try and make something that was pretty poor. I know every other content creator in Flight Simulator has created their own versions of videos related to the Avro Vulcan here, but I wanted to take my time. So I've learnt some stuff, I've been on some flights with her, and I have to say, she's amazing. She is, simply put, amazing. There is very few things I would say are wrong with this Vulcan. The limitations of the real aircraft have been represented quite well in the fact of the lack of view, for instance. We're not talking brilliant views like you get in a lot of aircraft nowadays. You really do struggle with this aircraft. If you don't have TrackIR or another head tracking app for your flight simulator, you may struggle with this aircraft. But it is, simply put, amazing. It's just put up to a whole new level of what is capable for Microsoft Flight Simulator. This looks absolutely like you just reach out and touch this aircraft. It's absolutely amazing. I've walked under and walked around Vulcans a lot of times at museums, and it's really well done. I have to take my hat off to Just Flight. They made an absolutely cracking job. The only downside is you can't smell it. The times I've walked through the bomb bay, or underneath the bomb bay even, and it just smells absolutely unique to the Vulcan. So let's see what you get when you purchase your Avro Vulcan via Just Flight. Right, welcome back. Welcome to my aircraft selection screen. It's amazing, you go from that little thing to these big things. Right, anyway, concentrate on the Vulcan. We have 3 aircraft here in the Just Flight Vulcan. You have the 200 series Olympus engines, the 301 Olympus engines, and we have XH558 in her Vulcan to the Sky Olympus 200 series repaint. The main ones here are your engine types. So if we load this up, these are the repaints for the 200 series Vulcan, the one that howls. This is the difference. The 200 series Vulcans, the early Vulcans, howl. XH558, for instance, if you've ever heard her at air shows, look at her on YouTube, listen to her, she howls. The 301 series engines do not howl, or not as much. I won't go too much into the reason why she howls and why the other ones don't howl, but anyway, we divulge. Just Flight have created 2 separate sound packs, and these are very accurately created sound packs. So here in the 201 series collection of Vulcans, we have just about all the major repaints, or paint schemes I should say, that the Avro Vulcan went through in her lifetime. Obviously 558, the one that I was just started off the video with, that was 558 in her Vulcan display flight repaint, which is a wraparound camouflage. But as you can see, we have the top wraparound camouflage here for XH538 and a white underbelly. We have the, and I was a child when I thought this, but the happy smiley Vulcan. It looks like it's got a smiley face here on XH534 of 230 OC Operational Conversion Unit. We have all the major squadrons here. We've got number 1 group, we've got 9 squadron, we've got the white Vulcans. We have XL426 and XL361, a 617 squadron, Dam Busters fame. This is the anti-flash white colour that the Vulcan started off in. The B Mark 1s would have been an anti-flash white before going over to the camouflage system, whether it be the full wet round or, like I say, the white underbelly. But again, we've got 426 here of the Vulcan Restoration group, which is based down in Southend, if I remember correctly. Again, very accurately done. Moving on to the K2 tankers. Now, these are, like I said, the airborne tanker variants. When the Avro Vulcan was getting retired from her strategic nuclear bomber role, she was moved over to the tanker role, which makes it the K2 variant. And here in XH558, again served in 50 Squadron as a tanker variant, and we have various other tankers here from 50 Squadron and just 50 Squadron. But again, different camouflage patterns. The all wraparound camouflage here of XL445 and the top camouflage colour white stroke grey underside of XJ825. Moving on to our next variant of the Vulcan, we have the MRR Maritime Reconnaissance. I can't remember exactly what the other R stands for, but it is a sniffer aircraft. It was used basically to... well, it was just for maritime reconnaissance, I do believe. I would go into it a little bit more, but without making myself look like an idiot, I don't actually know. I know it used to have sniffer pods mounted underneath the wings to take air samples, usually resulting from nuclear blasts or that sort of stuff. Again, towards the end of the Vulcan's career, but we have 27 Squadron for the MRR variant. Again, these are all the Vulcans that howl. Moving on to 301 series. Okay, so this is an uprated engine for the Avro Vulcan, still an Olympus engine, but the 300 series. So we have again differing camouflage patterns. We have the all-over wraparound colour here of XM607. We have XM607 once again, but with a different camouflage pattern because she has a grey underside. We have XM655 here, sporting the top camouflage colour, white stroke greyish underside and a smiley face. And we have XM655 as she is today. Now, we also have quite a rare colour here. We have XM900 here with a very dark coloured top camouflage colour. There was different, this is true, there was different variants of the colour scheme used here for the Vulcan. Now, I know for a fact that Just Flight recorded the sounds of XM655. So the sound pack you get for the uprated non-howling engines are from XM655, and she's at Wellesbourne Mount. I have seen her this year actually, and it's very accurately done. Moving over to the third variant, like I said, this is just XH558 as she is right now, and under the Vulcan to the Sky scheme, which would have the Spirit of Great Britain put on the left side of the nose. You can't see it on this particular part here, but that, as of 2010, this is how XH558 looks. I don't know whether it's accurate as to 2023, but It's nice to have her. So there you have 3 variants of the Vulcan. What don't we have? We do not have the early B1 Vulcan. That has never been created. I don't believe Just Flight are going to be creating that. But if you want a B Mark II, a K2, or the uprated Vulcan with the non-howling engines, they're all here, and the sounds are fantastic. Just listening to the howl of the Vulcan is just simply put amazing. So you join me now inside the rather cramped cockpit of XH558. Now, as I said before, we have different repaints, we have different versions of the B Mark II Vulcan. Interior wise, these are pretty much all the same, but it is a very well done, well detailed version. This is a study level version of the Avro Vulcan, at least from the front. In the reality, the Vulcan is a 5-man crew. 2 pilots, a pilot and a co-pilot, would be sitting up front, and in the back you would have 3 seats for the AEO, nav plotter and nav, I can't remember what the other role is, but the navigator. There's a couple of navigators in the back. We don't have them. They're not there. Some thought this would be an undersight. I don't think it's an undersight, because this is a limitation of Flight Simulator. Like I said, the real Vulcan is a 5-man crew. I don't have 4 other people here working together to fly and operate this Vulcan. So really the most important seats you need is this one and that one. And therefore I need all the flying controls. And boy, they have all the flying controls here. Everything you see here works. And it works exactly like it should do in the real Vulcan. Like I said, think of this as like A2A do with their Comanche 250. It is a very detailed, study level version of the Avro Vulcan. Now, if you're used to flying Cessnas, even if you're used to flying, let's say, the Just Like Hawk, for instance, a military aircraft, or even like the F-35 or anything else rather large, well, the F-35 is not large, but you get what I mean. This is a little bit different. This is before the times of multifunction displays. Every control, every dial, every instrument needs to be represented to the flight crew, and this is what we get here in the Vulcan. We have obviously all the instrumentation up front. We have instrumentation down the side here, instrumentation down the side here, and if I pull that back, more instrumentation down here. So we'll move them out of the way. Now, I'm not going to go through every piece of instrumentation. I don't know what every single piece here, not every single button does, but I can go through the basics. So, we're going to start at the bottom left here. This panel here is related to your engine start switches. The 4 switches here are your start switches for engines 1, 2, 3 and 4. Now, you can start this aircraft up, obviously, by starting it up the way it was supposed to be, which I believe was 3, 4, 1, 2. I suppose technically you can start it 1, 2, 3 and 4, but anyway, that's how you do it individually. The Vulcan was created in reality to have a rapid engine system, start system. Basically what this does is it brings, with one press of a button, it brings the whole aircraft alive. It starts all 4 engines, starts the powered flying controls, which are down here, and gets the aircraft ready to take off in this least amount of time. This is because of the role of the Avro Vulcan. It was a nuclear deterrent bomber and needed to get off the ground very quickly in the case of, well, in the case of nuclear war. So the crews would run up, the aircraft would be connected to ground power. They would hit the rapid engine start, close the door, be latched up. As they're doing that, all the flying controls are coming online, the engines are coming online. The engines will automatically, I believe, go to 50% throttle, and the aircraft would be rolling off down the runway. Obviously, we wouldn't be doing that here because the runway is somewhere over there. But we'll talk about the rapid engine start a little bit in a future video and its role. But moving on up, we have these 2 panels here related to, I believe, communications and radios. Again, in Flight Simulator, they work. I don't use them. I don't really talk to ATC, but it's nice that they all function and everything. Moving further on up, if I zoom in a little bit, we have weapons controls. We've got some ILSs here and things of that nature. Again, I'm not going to be paying too much attention to ILS. The Vulcan could land itself at an ILS airport or airfield. Moving on up here, we have the bomb bay controls. At the moment, the bomb bay doors are wide open. We can set this to obviously auto and close. I believe the Vulcan could open its bomb bay doors itself on a bomb run, obviously taking away that control from the crew. Moving on down here, like I said, this is the PFC section, or powered flying controls. At the moment, I'm shaking my stick around in the reality and it's doing nothing in the flight simulator. That's because this aircraft is in a cold and dark state. Obviously with the engines all running, we could power the flying controls and obviously the stick would work as it is supposed to. We have an oxygen system here for the pilot, and we also have the oxygen system copied over there for our co-pilot. Now, moving on to the front section of the cockpit. In front of the pilot, we have a standard selection of instrumentation here. Now, most of these, if you understand the rudimentary basics of flight, you will understand what most of these do. We have a speed in knots, an altimeter, a Mach indicator. I couldn't get the words out then. We have a heading slip indicator. We have a radar altimeter. We have a rate of incline and decline. Another artificial horizon. We have an exact copy of all that across the other side for the co-pilot. This aircraft could be operated by the co-pilot as well as the pilot. Moving on to the center section, we have underneath here, we just can't really quite see, if I remember correctly, there we go, that's better. We have various lighting to indicate the various different states of bits and pieces of the aircraft. Most important would be the bomb doors and the air brakes. These come on and off when bomb bay doors are open or the air brakes are deployed. Moving below that, we have a G meter in the positive at the upside of it, the top end of it, and below it we have negative, marked by the -2, -4. Obviously, the aircraft can pull G and can pull more positive G than negative. We have a control surface indicator. At the moment, this is all flat, but if the aircraft was powered, moving the stick would move these various bits and pieces of the. And this is the wonderful thing I always forget. Most aircraft have ailerons and elevators. The Vulcan has elevators? Ailerons? I can't remember what exact. They put both those words together. Always confuses me. But anyway, you have the rudder and the various different elevator controls on the back. Like I say, at the moment they're not live. Moving to this switch here, we have the jettison and stream for the braking chute. I think I've used that once so far on the flight simulator. Yeah, it works. Then we move on to engine controls. Remember, this is a 4-engine strategic bomber, so every engine has a control and a dial. So we have engines 1, 2, 3 and 4. Moving on down a bit further, we have the gear switch. So at the moment, obviously, gear is deployed. Obviously, switch this to, well, fold the undercarriage. Behind this GPS, which I'll move, yeah, move it up there, we have fuel gauges. Obviously, the aircraft is capable of carrying a lot of fuel in that wing. Moving on, we have the throttle controls. Again, 4-engine bomber, 4 throttle levers. At the moment, these are all dead. It doesn't matter what I do with my throttle. These are in the cut-off position. The dial here, the section of instrumentation here, is related to the fuel pumps. I believe there is 16. I could be wrong, but there is a lot of fuel pumps in an Avro Vulcan. Just turn them on. Just all I'll say, piece of advice, just turn them on. Obviously, you can pump fuel around the aircraft as desired. Again, you know, it's not something we really do have to worry about too much in Flight Simulator. What I will say about this is I do love the texturing. This aircraft is old, and it shows with this discoloration and the fact that they've drawn in with what would look like a pen or paint the lines. I mean, this is the original lines that obviously indicate the way the fuel flows. Because it's obviously been used a lot, it's worn out over the years, and this has been copied in the flight simulator. Moving on to the bottom here, we have the autopilot. It's not as simple as an autopilot nowadays, but it is of the era, so it is a correct autopilot. Again, all this is functioning here in the Just Like Vulcan. Moving on to the right hand side of the aircraft, we have some engine controls, lighting controls, and some pressurization, I believe is somewhere back there. Again, all these buttons, all that I've gone through and a lot more, work. This is a study level aircraft. It is absolutely jaw-dropping how this aircraft has been created and what it does. What else can we go through? We'll go through that in a second. The latest update, I can't remember what the exact version is now, brought this in, which is your speeds readouts, which I believe change with the fuel level you've got in the aircraft. So at the moment it's indicating that a rotation of 146, initial climb 154, circuit and landing would be the pattern is 179, approach 164, and covering the threshold at 149. So it's a good indication of your speed with your obviously your speedometer here as well. So that's a good idea of what how things work and what speed you should be doing. Obviously, this here is not realistic. The real aircraft back in the RAF days would not have a GPS. Again, it would be a 5-man crew. And they would be trained to operate this Vulcan and fly it and navigate it the way that it was supposed to be done. We don't have that luxury, so I'm kind of glad that Just Flight even gave us the option for this rudimentary but useful GPS system. We can mount it down low, down here, which is a bit of a problem because you have to keep looking down for it, or you mount it up here and you lose some of the view. Talking of view, we have a porthole. We have another porthole, and we have these. That's it. I can't see the wing. I can barely see the air-to-air refueling probe at the front there. The Vulcan is a very difficult even aircraft to see out of. I will say for flight simulator people, if you have TrackIR, it is a must. Even the Tobii eye tracker, I believe, would also be adequate for this role as well. If you do not have a form of head tracking, this aircraft is very difficult to fly, because if you just leave it with the view center forward like this, that's all you can see. You need to look out the porthole on approach. You need to be able to see out of the windows here when you're doing especially low level flying, which is something we're going to be doing in a future video. So moving on down to the tablet. Obviously every aircraft nowadays comes with a tablet, so this is the bog standard Just Flight tablet. Obviously if you have the Hawk or BAE 146 or any of the Just Flight aircraft for Microsoft Flight Simulator, you'll be accustomed to this tablet. Most important one that makes it unique to this aircraft is the aircraft tab, and we have the Vulcan system. So across the top here we have some of the settings, so we can sync the altimeters. Obviously this would be the altimeter, where is it? It's over here for the pilot and for the co-pilot, so they read the same. Obviously in reality they might not. We have state saving. Okay, so state saving is when you've flown the aircraft, you've landed back at your airport. If you have this ticked, okay, the aircraft, and shut the simulator down, the aircraft state of switches will be left as it was when you last had the aircraft running. We have GPS navigation, which is obviously that thing. So we have that ticked, and GPS will turn up. Cockpit pilots, obviously I'm one of them. When this aircraft goes live, a co-pilot will appear and block off all of this. So, yeah, it's realistic. It's just also, you know, a bit of a pain in the butt when you try to do stuff. We have realistic steer. Now, when the Vulcan steers on the ground, you can have two options. One, If you do not have this selected, we have the traditional steer with rudder input. So you move the rudder pedals, the aircraft steers, but that steers at all times. The Vulcan did not have this. The Vulcan had a press the button and then operate the rudder pedals to steer. So if you put the realistic steer on, you will have to set a rudder button or steering button and depress this button for the steering to operate. We have an auto shoot, which I believe is shoot cut, I think, or shoot deployment. I can't remember which one it is now. We have an auto AEO. Go on to the AEO section after I've gone through this. It's a whole different section of the Vulcan. We have pilot callouts. The auto AEO and pilot callouts were part of the latest update for the aircraft. There they go, version 1.1. We have trim sensitivity. Okay, so at the moment that's set as it is. The aircraft, obviously you can set how effective the trim is to your trim button. Now we move on to weapons and fuel tanks. The Vulcan was capable of carrying the below ordnance and can be mounted with the set ordnance, and it tells you where that ordnance will be put. So we have front bay, mid bay, aft bay. These are all bomb bay. You only have one bomb bay, but you have a front, mid and aft section of said bomb bay. And then we have left wing and right wing. So we have the Blue Steel Standoff Nuclear Missile. This was a great big mother humping firework and would sit underneath the aircraft just here and be deployed as a standoff nuclear weapon. We have the Mark 13 bomb, the WE-177, which I do believe is nuclear. I think the Mark 13s are dumb bombs and can be mounted across all three of the points on the bomb bay. The WE-177 nuclears can only be mounted in the mid bay. The MRR pods, these are part of the MRR Vulcan, and these I believe are the sniffer pods I was referring to earlier on. We can have saddle tanks mounted, so extra fuel and range. We can have cylinder tanks, again mounted across bomb bays. If you had the K2 variant, you would have a white tank. I think that might be the saddle tank, I'm not 100%, which was actually put into the bomb bay, therefore allowing the aircraft to carry extra fuel for its tanker role. And then we have the Shrike anti-radiation missiles, which can be mounted on the left wing and right wing. These are from the Vulcan's days when it went to war. Its only time it went to war in the Falklands. These weapons obviously are not deployable. This is not DCS, we don't have that. But it's nice that they can be modelled and put onto the aircraft, and they do add fuel and weight and drag to the aircraft. So moving on here, we have the state sections. So we can have a ready for takeoff state, a ready for start state, and as for the state we're in now, the cold and dark state. Now we move on to the various bits and pieces of the Vulcan that we can hook up to the aircraft. So we have a ground power cart, we have a Paloused cart, we have chocks, covers, bomb doors, and crew door, and a K2 hose. At the moment we have chocks, covers, bomb doors and crew door. So if we move outside, we can see crew door is open. Move in a little bit without going too far. We have the bomb doors are open, and if we move back a little bit further, we have the chocks. The ground power and Paloused, we'll turn them on just to show you. Ground power is sat down here, Paloused is starting here. Basically, ground power is what gives the aircraft, would you believe, ground power. The aircraft does not like sitting on the ground running on its own batteries, it wouldn't last too long, but this gives it the ability to start its engines or give the aircraft some electrical power. The Paloused here is a small jet engine, which is quite noisy, and basically this is what is used for normal ground starts. So when you're starting the aircraft, the engines individually, you'll be using the Paloused system. Obviously, like I said, we also have the intakes covered up here, the red intakes here. Obviously they would not be there for startup. Obviously, as you can hear now, the aircraft has started to come to life. We have some ground power and various lights and bits and pieces are starting to show up as the aircraft now has power. So We can now move on to these bits here. These are the different viewpoints that are set up for the aircraft. So you have the first pilot, of which we're in now, second pilot, which is over this side. Again, now this gives you more access to the various instrumentation over on his side. Again, like I say, instrumentation for flying. You can fly the aircraft this side. Moving on to the navigator position, we have a very basic rudimentary version of IFF. Yes, IFF system. Again, we have the Vulcan tablet and we have the GPS section. Moving on to the more important part, the AEO section. Again, this is not this is realistic in the fact of this is what an AEO's buttons were all looking like, but this is not how they were put in the Vulcan. You don't have anything other than that. Some people, like I say, call it a limitation. I don't. You have the basics of what you need to operate the Vulcan. What you can do, because this is all fantastically complicated and requires a video of itself, but you can now, as of the latest version 1.1, turn on Auto AEO. And as you start turning on the aircraft, he will operate the AEO section and keep the aircraft so that you can fly quite happily. As you can see, he's already starting to go through his systems and start switching things on. Again, like I say, I would go through this stuff, but it will be a whole new video. So, there we have the Vulcan, the Just Flight Vulcan. This is my first video of hopefully many videos I'm going to be doing in this aircraft. I am hoping to be showcasing off the Vulcan in various flights. I will be working up towards airshow-esque flights. I want to be doing flights over various parts of the UK. I have possibly looked at replicating the Vulcan's final flight, its tour of the UK. That is a route that's known, that we can fly that here. I will be doing a video showcasing the rapid engine start system, which is just awe-inspiring. And yes, I'll be flying this variant with a howl, and the variant that doesn't howl, I will fly the lot. I am a huge fan of the Vulcan and I'm loving every minute I spend in it. Like I say, this video is just a very detailed overview of what you get in the Vulcan to show you what is available. And if you're interested in British military aircraft in general, and you're wondering if this aircraft is realistic, the study level, all that kind of stuff, it is. It is very good, it is very well done, and I hope you found this video worthwhile. It's a bit of a different video from my normal. Normal flying videos will resume with other aircraft, and I will see you in a brand spanking new video in the Just Flight Avro Vulcan very soon.